Ubiquiti has just announced their newest product, the UNAS Pro, which comes loaded with their new application, Unifi Drive. That's right, we now have a Unifi NAS designed to seamlessly integrate into your existing Unifi ecosystem to provide a clean, simple way to deploy some network shared storage. Let's start with the hardware itself. At first glance, you'd probably think that this is the NVR Pro since they're both 2U systems with 7 hard drive bays, a 1GB RJ45 port, and a 10GB SFP Plus port. But clearly, you're blind because it's quite obviously the UNAS Pro. Okay, jokes aside, they're pretty much identical in appearance. As for the specs, it supports 7 hard drives or SSDs. It's got a quad-core ARM Cortex A57 CPU with 8GB of RAM and 10GB networking. Honestly, there's not really much to discuss in terms of hardware itself. The main thing is going to be the brand new application Unifi Drive that will be running on here. The setup is super simple, just like any other Unifi product. You can do it by navigating to the IP of the device in your browser, or you can just do it on your phone. After a few minutes, you'll be up and running, and depending on how many drive bays you've populated, you'll be able to select how much redundancy you want on your RAID array. I just have 4 drives, so I went with a RAID 5 setup, which gives me 1 drive worth of failure tolerance. From there, it integrates itself pretty well within your Unifi ecosystem and can be accessed through your site manager. The UI of Unifi Drive, to nobody's surprise, looks very similar to the other applications. The dashboard contains some useful info like drive configuration, storage usage, backup info, bandwidth over time, file shares, users, and snapshots. When it comes to network attached storage, there are a few important aspects: user management, sharing, performance, and backups. So how about we take a look at how Unifi Drive handles each of these? With user management, a big selling point here is the ability to utilize Unifi Identity to handle file access. If you already use Identity, then you can go into the admins and user settings to set your endpoint. If not, then the UNAS Pro will run it itself. You'll also see here that you can hook into other directory management services like Active Directory or LDAP. If you just want to manage everything manually, you can do that too by creating users individually in Unifi Drive. You can give roles or admin privileges to these users, which will in turn give them access to the application or control plane. Once a user is created in Unifi Drive, they are given their own personal drive that they can access. I think that's a good segue into our next topic, sharing. So when I say sharing, that tends to mean 2 things: how you actually access the files over the network, and how you share individual files or folders to other users. For the former, Unifi Drive supports network sharing via SMB. This will allow you to access the share from any platform, whether that's Windows, macOS, or Linux. There's nothing really fancy to this, as you'll access it in the same way you do any other SMB share, by navigating to the IP of the NAS on your operating system's file system. And voila, you're in. Depending on the user you're logged in as, that'll determine which shares or drives you have access to. Like I mentioned, every user gets their own personal drive. If you go into the application and create a new shared drive, then you'll be able to set which users have access, as well as permissions in the panel on the right side. Those shares can also be accessed directly in the application itself if you choose to go that route. From here, you can browse or do things like uploading, downloading, duplicating, moving, and sharing. Also, you can use Unifi Identity Endpoint. Using the Identity Endpoint on your phone or computer, you'll be authenticated and able to access your files no matter where you are in the world. On the desktop app, I'm told in the next release there will be a function to auto-mount the drive, which could replace your regular SMB process. Our next piece of the sharing puzzle is, well, sharing actual files. If you'd like to share a folder or file, you can click Share Link, which brings up options for link expiration date, how many times the user can access the file, and if you'd like to set a password. After that, a link is generated that anyone can use to access that file or folder, and it'll even work externally. You can also get a QR code if you want to be cool like that. To manage all your shared links that you've created, you can go into the settings to see them, or you can get them from the All Files section. Alrighty, let's talk about performance. Now, this is dependent on so many different things like the client network and storage speed, the types of files being moved, RAID configuration, and all kinds of stuff. With my setup, which has 4 hard drives in RAID 5, I was seeing around 500 megabytes per second. Depending on your drives and RAID configuration, you may see higher or lower speeds. But for my results, this seems pretty normal. Moving on to the final pillar of the NAS fundamentals, and that's resiliency, which is typically done in two ways: snapshots and backups. Snapshots are going to be periodic jobs that store a snapshot of what the file system was like at that point in time. These are stored on the drives themselves and are meant to be a way to fix an oopsie-doopsie like deleting a file that you shouldn't have. In Unifi Drive, you can set them to run on a schedule and also specify how many you want to keep. For some drives, you may want a snapshot every day and to keep 200 of them, and for others, you may just want one per month and to keep 12. I don't know you. I don't know your life. Once you have a snapshot, or 40, you can browse into each of them to restore everything or dig into a specific folder to download a single file. While snapshots are extremely useful, they don't protect you from a system failure. This is where backups come in. When creating a backup task, you can select one or multiple drives or even drill down into specific folders. Then you choose where you want to send them, whether that's another UNAS, separate SMB share, or even Google Drive. And just like the snapshots, you can have this run on a schedule. Boom, all your files are off to their backup location. Now we've come to the part that everyone always asks. How much is this going to cost? The UNAS Pro will launch at a price of $499, and availability is to be determined. If I know at the time that this video goes live, I'll put the text here, but if not, just follow Ubiquiti's announcements. So there you have it, the Unifi UNAS Pro complete with Unifi Drive. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like this video, then drop a like and subscribe if you want to see me take a look at more Unifi stuff. Spoiler alert, I'm gonna do that anyway. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my high capacity NAS with 10 gig and all the snapshots I need. You guys are great. And if you're still watching, you're a 5400 RPM hard drive. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.